want you to join me as we welcome Bridget Jones to the podium. Bridget has been working for months and months with a lot of help, but making this another fantastic summit. And I've got to say, I didn't think we could make it better than it's been in the past, but I think this has been the greatest summit we've had. Thank you, Bridget, and come.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Charles, one of our directors and my boss, along with others seated at the side of the stage and other CRT directors that are with us today. Thank you all for joining us this afternoon. I am privileged to serve as moderator for 10 minutes for this part of our summit program and announce some exciting news for Middle Tennessee, but also our partners from the Memphis, Jackson, Chattanooga, and Knoxville regions. Tennessee is seen as a promising state in implementation of sustainable communities programs, we call it quality growth, through the leadership of these organizations and some robust regional collaborative efforts. We also have terrific leadership at the state level from many of the cabinet members that you've heard from today that also position us in this promising light. Cumberland Region Tomorrow, in affiliation with Smart Growth America, our colleague Jeff Anderson is here, had the opportunity last summer to bring in representatives from the Surdna Foundation, which is one of the largest supporters nationally of smart growth programs. And we came together as a group, our regional partners, and several state agencies to meet with their reps to organize and submit an application that is funding our 2-year grant project to create the Tennessee Region's Sustainable Communities Roundtable. The leaders, our partners, along with state representatives, met with the Surdna folks, and we jointly identified our objectives and the work that we're going to do for this year and next year. The purpose of the Tennessee Region's Roundtable is behind me, and it is to facilitate the creation and operation of a network of Tennessee lead regional organizations to advance joint regional and statewide economic and community development initiatives that build upon the quality growth, sustainable communities work that we all have underway. Some of the objectives that we plan to accomplish include to support and expand statewide goals of job creation and economic competitiveness, the creation of quality communities, and wise use of fiscal resources. Also, to support and to create leadership and expertise among public and private sector partners, state and local governments, and the design and planning community, many of you here today. We will develop new regional capacity and synergy through shared knowledge, technical assistance and resources, outreach and communication efforts, and best practices sharing among our regions and our communities. And we want to position Tennessee as the leading southern state in successful implementation of quality growth or sustainable communities practices and principles. We believe through our new Tennessee Region's Roundtable Network, we will accomplish these things and more that will advance Tennessee's continuing economic vitality, livability, and sustainability for many years to come. Today, we recognize and introduce our partners who've traveled long distances to be with us today from the Memphis, Jackson, Chattanooga, and Knoxville regions, along with committed state advisors that I'll identify, who are seated on the front row and throughout the auditorium. On behalf of the Cumberland Region Tomorrow Board of Directors, I want to thank representatives from these regions and tell you who they are now for joining with us with this effort. ULI Memphis representatives, wave, and Memphis Shelby County Office of Sustainability are our partners, the lead organizations from the Memphis region that are working to do the very same things we're doing here in Middle Tennessee. We have 2 representatives from the Southwest Tennessee Development District, that also are partnering with us, and they have a very robust regional economic development institute that's focused on human capital development, which means they're trying to create more high school graduates and college graduates, and we can certainly learn from their efforts to address many of the issues that have been discussed here today. In Middle Tennessee, it's CRT and the Nashville Area MPO and the Greater Nashville Regional Council, our partners. Thank you. And then in Chattanooga, the effort's being led through the Southeast Tennessee Development District with support of their regional MPO, foundations, and other groups. And then finally, we have a large group of folks from the Knoxville region being led by the Knoxville Regional Transportation Planning Organization and other partners that are, again, through a HUD regional planning grant, going through the same process of creating an effective coalition, creating a regional vision, creating comprehensive plans to implement that, and moving forward to accomplish, again, the same things that we want to do in Middle Tennessee. Our state advisors, we have commitments from Commissioner Johnson at Department of Agriculture, we've heard from today, Assistant Commissioner Amashakan from TDOT, Commissioner Whitaker, Director Peterson, several, the State Architect's Office. You can see behind us a commitment from more state departments than we've ever had come together to work with us with our effort, and we thank you for that today. And then finally, I want to personally thank Jeff Anderson with Smart Growth America, our colleague, who helped us identify this opportunity and will also join with our network to allow us to access federal and national resources that can assist us. So please join me today in announcing our Tennessee Region's Sustainable Communities Roundtable, welcoming our new partners in CROM, and just join me in applauding everyone in our efforts across the state to advance what we're working on.
Thank you, Bridget, and let's give a great round of applause to all of the panelists that have been on our program today, and especially this afternoon. It's now my pleasure to introduce Mayor Dean to provide our annual call to action, as he has every year at the summit. I'll introduce him by saying what I said about you at the Rotary Club in Lebanon yesterday, and what I've said so many places as we've worked toward the transit issues and the regional issues over the last several years. It's been my honor to know and be friends with every mayor of Nashville for the last 40 years. And because of my roots in Sumner County and my residence in Sumner County, to each one of them, I have gone and said there are a lot of issues that need to be discussed. There are a lot of things that need to be done that go beyond county boundaries. And while they were great mayors and great people and great friends, none of them responded with any interest whatsoever in our region. The very first month Karl Dean was mayor, we talked about regional issues. And again, I was just a little anxious about that. I didn't know what was going to happen, but sure enough, here's a guy who has stepped up and walked the walk and talked the talk and put his money where his mouth is. Karl Dean.
Well, thank you, Charles, for that kind introduction and for all the great work that you're doing for our region. Before I get started, I have the privilege of acknowledging the following people who were here today. This is a pretty impressive list. For our Tennessee commissioners, we had Julius Johnson, Agriculture, Susan Whitaker, Tourism, and John Shore from TDOT. We also had from the federal level, Patrick James from Senator Alexander's office and Phil Ponder from Representative Cooper. And then we had a group of mayors who some are still here and some have been here. Rogers Anderson from Williamson County, James Bailey from Murray County, Howard Bradley from Robinson County, Ernest Burgess from Rutherford County, Mike Carter from Westmoreland, Bill Koch from Forest Hills, Dean Dickey from Columbia, Scott Foster from Hendersonville, Joanne Graves from Gallatin, Anthony Holt from Sumner County, Ken Moore from Franklin, Bob Ryle from Dixon County, Howard Spray from Berry Hill, Beverly Toddy from Fairview, Paul Webb from Brentwood, and Ken Wilbur from Portland. And that's great that so many mayors are interested in this topic and are willing to take time to come to Nashville for this important meeting. You know, today's summit comes at really a great time. A group of 115 people from throughout our region, many of who are in the room right now, recently returned from a Chamber of Commerce leadership study mission to Portland, Oregon, and Eugene, Oregon. And we all spent a few days learning about what another region has done for its future. And more importantly, we focused on our long-term vision for our own area. That is something we think about a lot these days because we know that the decisions we're making today as a region will determine where we are in 10 and 20 years from now. We have made great progress, and I don't think I'm exaggerating when I say the future well-being of our state depends upon us continuing to move forward. We all know that Middle Tennessee is the economic engine of our state. People are moving here from all over the country. They are coming by the thousands from Atlanta, from Los Angeles, from Chicago, and Detroit. To quote Ralph Schultz's favorite statistic, they are coming to take advantage of an area where the cost of living is 89% of the national average, and the per capita income is 114.9% of the national average. That is a great statistic, and it shows you how strong our region is. But everyone who lives here knows that our affordable cost of living and good salaries are only the tip of the iceberg. 850,000 more people are expected to move to this region by 2035. That's nearly 1 million more people by 2035. And they are coming for any number of good reasons, for well-paying jobs, safe streets, high-quality schools, and so much more. They are coming because this area has energy to it, and because, and I truly believe this, while things are pretty good now, our best days are still ahead of us. The Nashville area's momentum is strong. Forbes ranked us number 3 as America's boomtown, meaning that for the next decade, we're the top third city in the country that will have a strong, dynamic economy. And we were also ranked number 6 for businesses and careers. And then there's my favorite all-time ranking. Rolling Stone magazine named us the #1 music scene in America. I know very well that part of my job as mayor is to help Nashville continue to develop in a way that builds on the great momentum and continues to attract people to our region. It's no coincidence that when I was running for mayor, I and every other candidate were talking about the same issues: education, public safety, and economic development. We're talking about those things because we all realize that those are the 3 critical things a city has to get right in order to succeed and to attract new jobs and new residents. I'm extremely proud of where Nashville is at this moment in time. In the throes of the recession, we stuck to our commitment to education and public safety. While cities across the country were laying off police officers and cutting funding for school, we did just the opposite. And those decisions are having an impact. Last year, we had the lowest number of homicides in our city in 45 years. You would have to go back to 1966 to find a similar number. In our schools, truancy is down by about 40%, and our dropout rate has gone from 7% to 2% in 4 years. And our city made the right decision, to make a major investment in our #2 private employer, which is our tourism industry, with the construction of our new convention center, the Music City Center, which is on time and on budget and will open in about 10 months. Yes, our country has been in a recession, but it is not news to any of us that for business and for government, it is the slow economic times that create opportunity to pass your competition. When the economy is growing full steam, everyone is charging forward at the same pace. It's how you navigate the curves when times are tough that determines who will come out ahead. We have made strategic investments in our priorities, and they're paying off, and I think that is good news for the whole region, because we all know that county lines are really just something humans draw on maps. They mean nothing to people looking for the best place to go shopping, or to cheer on their favorite team, or to take a family on vacation. I believe our counties rise and fall together, and now is not the time to go backward. As you may have read in the paper and seen on the news, we've had to make some tough budget decisions to continue keeping on the right track. The easy decision, the political decision, would have been to make draconian cuts and let our city fall behind, but as I hope you agree, that was not the right decision for Nashville, and I don't think it's the right decision for the region. We're going to keep moving forward when it comes to education, public safety, and economic development, and we're going to do the same when it comes to mass transit. There was a report released this week by an outside group that suggested areas we could cut to avoid a property tax increase in this year's budget. Among several suggestions that would have hurt our city tremendously, it suggested eliminating the city's subsidies for MTA and RTA, which means that we would essentially do away with public transit altogether in Nashville. The group suggested that this group calls themselves a think tank, and think might be a stretch. While they claim these cuts would allow us to balance our budget while, quote, preserving Metro Nashville's long-term fiscal stability, what they clearly don't understand is the intrinsic link between transit and our city's economy, and the same applies to the region. Half of the 11 million projected transit trips for next fiscal year will be taken by people going to work. Got that? Half of the 11 million trips in Nashville will be taken by people going to work, many of them who have no other form of transportation to get to work. And that includes 12,000 users with disabilities that take advantage of our Access Ride program, and 3,000 students who depend on MTA to get to and from school. Ridership on our transit services is up. MTA's ridership on regular routes is up 15% compared to this time last year. And ridership on the RTA, express buses, has increased by an astonishing 55% over the last fiscal year. We have to be investing more in mass transit to be competitive economically and not going backwards. While I'm sure we all agree on the attributes I listed that make our region a great place to live and work, we also probably agree that the one negative in our area is how much time people spend stuck in traffic and how much we all spend on gas. In fact, a 2010 report by CEOs for City designated our region as having the worst commute in America. That report took into account the total amount of time people spend traveling to work, not just how long they spend stuck in traffic. Thanks to the way our region has developed over the past 50 to 60 years, a lot of people in Middle Tennessee have to commute a long way to get to work. And they're crossing county lines in the process. 1 in 3 people in our region live in one county and work in another. This is a regional issue, and we need to work together as a region and act now if we're going to avoid accumulating more dubious honors like worst commute. Because we know firsthand that commute times and transit options matter to companies looking to relocate here. I'll give you one example. Last year, the head of my Office of Economic and Community Development went to Chicago as part of a Chamber of Commerce economic development trip, basically to try to steal business. During that trip, he met with a dozen site consultants whose job it is to advise companies that are looking to expand or to relocate. They talked about how Nashville can remain competitive and even improve our position on what is a very, very tough playing field. All 12 of those consultants said that if Nashville wants to recruit more businesses, and this is the whole region, we need to expand mass transit options. Those consultants understand that companies are increasingly prioritizing access to mass transit in their search criteria. And I am sure we all agree that our region needs to do what it takes to be on top of those companies' lists when they're looking for a home. Because we all know that we compete with regions like Austin, Charlotte, and Denver for new businesses and new residents. And I'm sure it's not lost on any of us here that each one of those cities is ahead of us right now in the development of mass transit. We can no longer afford to operate oblivious to what's taking place in similar-sized communities across the country. We are in an era of choice where people no longer live where they live just because they grew up there, or that's where their family members live. Our region is at a crossroads. We have decisions to make. Do we come together now to find mass transit solutions that will attract new business and residents? Or do we do nothing? If we do nothing, if we choose not to move forward with advancing mass transit in Middle Tennessee, we will be consciously choosing to put ourselves at an economic disadvantage to our peer regions. We will be limiting our potential for economic growth, and we will be guaranteeing worse traffic congestion. And when gas prices reach the $4 or $5 or $6 per gallon mark, which they are predicted to do over the course of time, people will be asking why we've done nothing to give them a practical alternative to a car. I'm happy to report that this region is not going to stand still when it comes to mass transit. At the transportation panel earlier this afternoon, you heard from Mayor Caucus members about what we are doing on the regional front. The mayors in the caucus agree that we need to find a way to offer common sense transit options to people throughout our area. And over the past few months, we have made real progress, and we are moving forward here in Nashville as well. Many of you already know about the East-West Connector that I discussed today, the bus rapid transit system that will travel in dedicated lanes down one of Nashville's busiest and most important corridors. I believe bus rapid transit is the future of mass transit in mid-sized cities like Nashville. It has worked in many cities we compete with for business and tourists, like Cleveland, Las Vegas, and Orlando. I think it will radically transform the way people move around our city, and I am committed to doing all I can to make this project a success. I am also committed to expanding transit options to other parts of Nashville, some of which will link up to the East-West Connector. Our operating budget this year includes $3.3 million for services like a BRT Lite. This is bus rapid transit without a dedicated lane, which we already have on Gallatin Pike, which we will now have on Murfreesboro Road, and a University Connector, which will go across town that will link up TSU, Fisk, Vanderbilt, Belmont, and Lipscomb. That will bring our city closer together. These new services are an example of the expanded transit options that will help people throughout our region go to work, school, and play, and will make our region more attractive to businesses and residents looking to relocate. When I gave my first State of Metro address 4 years ago, to frame up the importance of working aggressively on our priorities, I quoted a noted philosopher and a pretty good hockey player named Wayne Gretzky, who said, "You miss 100% of the shots you don't take." This afternoon, I will leave you with another quote from this great hockey player. "You skate to where the puck is going to go, not to where it has been." That is what we need to do in Middle Tennessee. We need to work together as a region to think about not where the puck has been, not what's already happened here. We need to be working right now, aggressively, thoughtfully, on where the puck is going to be 10, 20 years from now. And if we do that together, there's no stopping this region. Because I truly believe the best days are still ahead for Middle Tennessee. This is a coming area. This is an area with a fantastic future. We just need to be bold enough to seize that future. Thank you.
Great call to action. Gary, come forward. Gary Scott stays behind the scenes, but with Bridget as a volunteer, has been responsible for putting all of this together, and join me in welcoming and thanking Gary Scott for doing this and being a part of this.
Hasn't it been absolutely refreshing to hear these great leaders in our region on the program this morning and this afternoon? Doesn't that give you hope for our people? As Summit Chair, it's my privilege to announce the annual awards for our Regional Thinking in Action Awards, and I'm going to do that in 5 minutes, and we'll be through with our summit here 5 minutes early. So I know that'll be your pleasure while it's my privilege. Bridget, could you come up and help me, please? While she's coming up, I'd like to thank the CRT Summit Committee. I'd like to particularly thank all of the volunteers. About 50 volunteers worked throughout this summit, and if you think it's been easy here today, you need to give them a hand because they need to have all the credit for that. Bridget, Casey Talbot, and Dustin Shane, who's been our tech guy down here, has done a terrific job, and we also want to thank them. Briefly, we're going to just look at some of the previous winners over the past 4 years, and I know Dustin's on the ball. Thank you. The 209 winners was a triumvirate of DeWitt Ezell, Jack Turner, and Steve Turner. Those individuals are not only 3 regional treasures, but they're also state treasures. Wonderful individuals who have exceeded all of anyone could ask them to do in making our Middle Tennessee region a great place to live. In 210, Mayor Karl Dean and Sam Hatcher, who are with us today, were the winners. And who cannot appreciate the tremendous leadership that Mayor Dean has given Nashville, and also creating the Mayor's Caucus and expanding our region so far ahead to address the issues that we all share. Sam Hatcher is a great regional journalist. I'll call him other things on occasion, but Sam, I respect you, and I'm glad you're here. In 211, Mayor Joanne Graves, the first chair of our Mayor's Caucus, had an award, and the executive director of Leadership Middle Tennessee, Susan Taylor, who most of you know, who has led, along with Jack Turner and the board, Leadership Middle Tennessee over the previous 10 years, one of our great regional institutions. This year, 3 additional important leaders will join them as recipients of the 2012 awards, and they've been nominated and were selected by the CRT Summit Committee. 1 from the public sector and 2 from the private sector. All of those are essential players in making an incredible difference in Middle Tennessee. From the public sector, I'll give you a couple of points. Before I finish, you'll know who this person is. He's a leading voice in regional transit issues, in historic renovation, national Main Street revitalization, and is the newly elected chair of our Mayor's Caucus, the City Mayor of Franklin, Tennessee, Ken Moore. Right. Ken? Ken, thank you for everything you do in our region, and if I ever really have a serious sickness, I'll come and see you. Thank you. From the private sector, there are 2 individuals, and when I finish, you'll know they are. We want to recognize the great work of the Nashville Chamber in partnership 2010 and also 2020. For multiple decades of helping us in economic development and last year being named the #1 Chamber of Commerce in the country, Ralph Schultz and Janet Miller. Debbie Dale will, if she'll come forward, we will present her as a representative of the chamber. As you know, Ralph was pretty sick today, and he's not here. And I'm sure Janet had to leave also.
I'm glad to do it. That's great.
And,
Oh, wow.
and we should have had her on the list with them as well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, each of you, for being here, for your leadership in our region. It's always a pleasure to visit with you, and I hope to extend that at our reception. Without any motion or second, we're going to say this is closed for 2012, and let's have a drink. Thank you.